Okay. Good day, everyone. I'm Alfonso J. Enriquez III. I'll be presenting the life of Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple Incorporation. So, to begin with, Wow. Who is Steve Jobs? Stephen Paul Jobs was an American inventor, designer, and entrepreneur who was the co-founder, chief executive, and chairman of Apple Computer. He was born in 1955 to University of Wisconsin graduate students who gave him up for adoption. Jobs was smart but directionless, dropping out of college. Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, to be specific, in San Francisco, California. He lived with his adoptive family in Mountain View, California, within the area that would later become known as Silicon Valley. Um, as a boy, Job and his father worked on electronics in the family garage. Paul showed his son how to take apart and reconstruct electronics, a hobby that instilled confidence, tenacity, and mechanical uh, prowess in young Jobs. While Jobs was an intelligent person and innovative thinker, his youth was riddled with frustrations over formal schooling. Jobs was a prankster in elementary school due to boredom, and his fourth grade teacher needed to bribe him to study. Job tested so well, however, the administrators wanted to skip him ahead of high school, a proposal that his parents declined. After high school, Jobs enrolled at Reed College in uh, Portland, Oregon. Lacking direction, he dropped out of college after 6 months and spent the next 18 months dropping on creative classes at the school. Jobs later recounted how one course in calligraphy developed his love of typography. And in 1974, Jobs took a position as a video game designer with Atari. Several months later, he left the company to find spiritual enlightenment in India, traveling further and experimenting with psychedelic drugs. Who is Steve Wozniak? Steve Wozniak is an American computer scientist, inventor, and programmer. In partnership with his friend Steve Jobs, Wozniak invented the Apple I computer, rather. Stephen Gary Wozniak, born on August 11, 1950, in San Jose, California. Wozniak was the son of an engineer at Lockheed Martin and was fascinated by electronics at an early age. Although he was never a star student in the traditional sense, Wozniak had an aptitude for building working electronics from scratch. During his brief stint at the University of California at Berkeley, Wozniak met Steve Jobs, who was still in high school, through a mutual friend. The two later paired up to form a Apple computer on April 1, 1976, prompting Wozniak to quit his job at Hewlett-Packard, or HP. Working out of a family garage, he and Jobs attempted to produce a user-friendly alternative to the computers that were being introduced by international business machines at that time. Wozniak worked on the invention of products, and Jobs was the responsible for marketing. Not long after Apple was founded, Wozniak created the Apple I, a design built largely in Jobs' bedroom and garage. And with Wozniak's knowledge of electronics and Jobs' marketing skills, the two were well suited for to do business together. Wozniak went on to conceive the Apple II as a part of the company's personal computer series. And by 1983, uh, Apple had a stock value of $985 million. Wozniak ended his employment with Apple in 1985. Now, for the Apple Incorporation timeline and growth, as you can see, there's a picture that shows the timeline for Apple Incorporation. During 1977, the Apple II was developed, and Macintosh at 1984, Laser Writer at 1985, and 2001 is the iPod, and 2003 is the iTunes Store was developed, and 2007 is the iPhone, and 2010 is the iPad, as well as the logo. It changed from 1976 to 2013. The visible founders of Apple were two Steve Jobs and Wozniak, and their friend, who is the major contributor to the development of iPhone, named Ronald Wayne. Jobs and Woz were met in 1971 through another friend. These two shared their love for technology, prank, and explore in the Apple company. They know about the technology, know how to develop blue boxes that are helpful in long distance phone calls without any additional expenses. Um, Jobs and Wozniak both doing some job and save money for the development of new chips and new technologies. These two friends attend computer club together. Was introduced its first MIT's Altair, which looks like a small box of circuit board and light box, and enhances the approach of MIT's to convert it a more simple product. And this approach moved to produce the Apple products today. Was develops the first computer, which has a typewriter like keyboard and connects to the TV screen. Therefore, um, that was a archetype of every latest computer and was always introduced its original product in every latest technology. In 2006, speaking in National Public Radio, was said that I just want to show that world that it is possible to build a computer who looks like a typewriter, having a keyboard and present all response on TV screen. So I show the people that with great knowledge and to boast and to be clever, it can be possible to develop an expensive computer. Was a larger than life personality and not too much proud of his development. He thought that I just know a little about the newest development in computers. Job sold the was computer. A brief history for Apple Incorporation. So Apple Computers Incorporation was founded on April 1, 1976 by college dropouts Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, as I said earlier, who brought to the new company a vision of changing the way people viewed computers. Jobs and Wozniak wanted to make computers small enough for people to have them in their homes or offices. Simply put, they wanted a computer that was a user-friendly. Jobs and Wozniak started out building the Apple I in Jobs' garage and sold them without a monitor, keyboard, or casing, which they decided to add on 1977. The Apple II revolutionized the computer industry with the introduction of the first ever color graphics. That one sales jumped from $7.8 million in 1978 to $117 million in 1980, the year Apple went public. Wozniak left Apple in 1983 due to a diminishing interest in the day-to-day running of Apple computers. Jobs then hired PepsiCo's John Scully to be the president. However, this move backfired, and after much controversy with Scully, Jobs left in 1985 and went on to a new big and bigger things. Um, Through the rest of the 1980s, Apple was still doing well. In 1990, it posted its high profits yet. This was, however, mostly due to the plans that Jobs had already set in motion before he left. Most notably, his deal with a tiny company by the name of Adobe, creator of the Adobe Portable Document Format, or the PDF. Together, the two companies created the phenomenon known as the desktop publishing. Back in 1985, Scully turned down an appeal from Microsoft founder Bill Gates to license its software. This decision would later come back to hunt him because Microsoft, um, whose Windows operating system OS featured a graphical interface similar to Apple's, became the toughest competition in the late 1980s and throughout the 1990s. Over the course, a few years, Apple market share suffered slowly after its peak in 1990, and by 1996, experts believed the company to be doomed. It was not until 1977 or 1997 when Apple was desperately in need of an operating system that it bought out the next softwares or Jobs company, and board of directors decided to ask for some help from an old friend, Steve Jobs. Jobs became an interim CEO or ICO as he called himself. Jobs was not officially the CEO until 2000. Jobs decided to make some changes around Apple. He forged an alliance with Microsoft to create a Mac version of its popular Office software .6. If you're going to watch the movie or the personality of Steve Jobs, the leadership style of Steve Jobs can be classified into four sections or into four types. Um, he is a autocratic leader, visionary, transformational, and transactional. In terms of the more academic leadership styles, Steve Jobs' approach is best defined as a autocratic. He had a my way or the highway approach leadership, and he believed that he was solely responsible for the decisions and direction of his team. He knew that he was the one in charge, and he didn't need to rely on collaboration and input from his team to keep things moving forward. He believed um, he believed that the work was more efficient and effective when he made all of the choices. And Steve Jobs' leadership style was autocratic. He had a meticulous eye for detail and surrounded himself with like-minded people to follow his lead. Never is more written about famous figure than at that time of his or her passing. Deceased prominent people are often eulogized not only by friends who knew them personally, but also by those with whom they work. When Steve Jobs passed away in 2011, after his lengthy illness, much was written about his life, and particularly it is all about his leadership at Apple and in various personal electronics industries. As noted above, Steve Jobs is figure who is frequently described as the ideal example of a transformational leader. On the other hand, some accounts characterize him as a temperamental and secretive. And if Job is to be remembered as an ideal transformational leader, it is important to assess the likely impact um, of his leadership as an our understanding of a transformational leader. Also, he is also notable for being visionary and transactional for his capability in management. Now, for the motivation model, I chose the motivational model goal setting theory of Edwin Locke. This theory shows that goals are set to achieve makes the employees to be motivated and perform better and put their maximum effort in their job. Steve Jobs and his co-founders set goals to achieve day by day, and that keeps them to feel motivated in what they are doing for the purpose of creating an innovative device in the industry. Steve Jobs is regarded as one of the most inspirational entrepreneurs that the world has ever seen due to his contribution to innovative approach to design and technology. His disregard for people who said it wasn't possible and his vision for the future made him a pioneer. His ability to motivate himself and the others around to produce groundbreaking results always interested me. So how did he motivate himself and the others around him to run through the walls for him? to describe Steve Jobs' charisma and its effects on the developer working on the Macintosh project. The reality distortion field was said to be Steve Jobs' ability to convince himself and others to believe almost anything with a mix of charm, charisma, bravado, hyperbole, marketing, appeasement, and persistence. It was said to distort an audience's sense of proportion, scale of difficulties, and size of improbability. Job could also use the reality distortion field to appropriate others' idea of his as his own. Um, the ability was uncanny, as he replaced his developers under a spell or an illusion that nothing was impossible for him. Now, for the method of communication, Steve Jobs has in oral or verbal communication with his target audience. Jobs was the best business storyteller of our time. Every product launch was brilliantly performed. Every move, demo, image, and slide was in sync and beautifully choreographed. If I sound like I'm describing a Broadway show, you're right. Um, a Steve Jobs presentation had more in common with an award-winning theatrical performance than a typical product launch. Um, when Steve Jobs built um, product keynote presentation, he was involved in every step from creating the messages to designing the slides, but the final step was critical. Jobs practiced on stage over and over and over again. A business reporter writing a behind-the-scenes article about an Apple product launch was given access to Steve Jobs during the rehearsal phrase. Jobs unveils Apple's latest product as if he were a particularly hip and plug-in friend showing off inventions in your living room. Um, Truth is, the sense of informality comes only after grueling hours of practice. In the same article, a retail executive was asked to wait until Jobs finished rehearsing. He waited for 4 hours before Jobs walked off stage. Um, one former Apple employee published an article in the Guardian about his personal experience rehearsing just one portion of Steve Jobs' presentation. He said to a casual observer, these presentations appeared to be just a guy in a black shirt and blue jeans talking about some new technology products, but they are in fact incredibly complex and sophisticated blend of sales pitch, product demonstration, and corporate cheering. They present weeks of work, precise or orchestration, and intense pressure. The reporter pointed out that Jobs had begun preparing the presentation weeks in advance. Jobs spent 2 full days of dress rehearsal before the big day. Let's talk about the company standards. So as you can see in the picture, that is the vision and mission of Apple. Um, in the vision, we believe that we are on the face of the earth to make a great products, and that's not changing. And for their mission, bringing the best user experience to its customers through its innovative hardware, software, and services. Apple's mission statement defines why they are in business. Although it is a simple statement, it provides a core focus on what they're trying to achieve for a long term. Apple's mission statement paints the big picture, helping to set the foundations for the building blocks that then need to be put in place to achieve it. The mission statement is future focused and inspirational by nature. Apple has a design-led approach to everything it does. The design approach is seamlessly is knitted into the very fabric of the company and can be seen across all of its customer touchpoints. Apple delivers on its promise of focusing on the user experience by designing its stores to be exceptionally clean, um, aesthetically pleasing to view and blending light, also the glass and wood elements. Ultimately, the design leads to the focal point of showcasing the um, the Apple products, and allowing customers to interact with their latest innovations. The design focus is obvious throughout the store, but it is the attention to detail and the user. Apple colleagues use iPads to book sessions with experts, see people who have problems, or book people onto demonstrations run in store. For the style of control that Steve Jobs used is, for me, I consider it as a concurrent control. Steve Jobs had an incredible work ethic. Jobs told his biographer that when he returned to Apple in 1996, he worked from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Every day, since he was still also leading Pixar's operations. He worked tirelessly and suffered from kidney stones, but he insisted motivating both companies by consistently showing up and pushing people to make the best product possible, and they respected him for it. Jobs faced many obstacles to get Apple and Pixar off the ground, but he had a unique way of crafting his own reality, a distortion field. He'd used to persuade people that his personal beliefs were actually facts, which is how he pushed his companies forward. He also used a blend of manipulative tactics to ensure his victories, particularly in boardroom meeting with some of the most powerful company executive in the world. This guide is designed to teach you how to get what you want in life, or your career, using examples from Jobs' life, many of which were detailed in Walter's Isaacson biography of the Apple co-founder. What are the reasons for success of Steve Jobs? First is Steve Jobs was demanding. Second is Steve Jobs was perfectionistic. And third is Steve Jobs was innovative. And fourth one is Steve Jobs was a passionate. And lastly, Steve Jobs was inspiring. To be specific, Steve Jobs is often pointed as the very picture of tough leadership, most of which is owed to his incredibly high expectation. Um, he set the bar high for the people who worked under him, and was known for being ruthless at best. He noticed that the second O in the Google logo on the iPhone icon didn't have the right yellow gradient, so Jobs immediately assigned team members to take care of it. That's right. The co-founder of Apple noticed a single letter in one small icon. Talk about the drive for perfection and an outstanding level of attention to detail. Steve Jobs didn't only change the technology, he changed the world. And you can bet he didn't do that by sticking with his status. Um, Jobs was a true innovator, and he had a very specific vision for the future of Apple. He reportedly saw a future with a computer on every worker's desk. He wasn't far off, and he tirelessly pursued that vision. There was a reason Jobs was dogged about his work, and he was insanely passionate about what he was doing, and his work aligned with his natural motivation. It was the passion that helped him ride the waves of Apple, including the numerous lawsuits that could pull the company under. For my learnings in the movie, as well as for the this course in engineering management, what we need to do first is we need to set goals you want to attain. It is very important that we need to plan ahead. We need to be organized in all what we need to do to get that particular goal. We need to know the limitation, the boundaries, or the needed things to achieve, um, to set that goals you want to attain. Always focus on the positive and let go of negative. We need to focus on the positive sides and let go of negative sides, because um, we need this in preparing for a bigger picture in ourselves. We need to stay in a positive environment. We need to let go of the negative environment, since you will be persuaded by people um, of having a negative environment, and you must stick on the positive side to gain more knowledge and information about that you want to focus with. And another thing is always take a calculated risk. We need to know what are the risks, or what are the risk of this investment, or risk of this job. Uh, like what we said, risk what you can afford to lose. Like in a business, risk what can you afford to lose, and that is very important. And the last thing is be wise in the company you choose to keep. Be careful on the company you choose to keep, because it will reflect also um, your way of how to deal with problems, and how to deal with challenges. And that's why we need to focus on the positive environment and let go of negative. And that's all for my presentation. Um, Thank you.